Hello everyone, welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, Jackson Kellogg. Today, we're getting into Week 13 of the NFL Power Rankings. We're getting into the closing of the season, 5 more weeks of regular season to go, and then we hit playoffs. So, let's get right into this week's version. It's not going to be much of a surprise who's at 32. Oh, look at that. The team who's been there all season. The New York Jets. The worst team in football right now. No team that is any worse. They just kept it going against the Dolphins. They couldn't get anything going. Fitzmagic got done what he needed to get done against them. It was a pretty easy win for the Dolphins as the Jets, their slump continues. The team I'd say they're most likely to beat to finish out their season is the Raiders. So their schedule includes the Raiders, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and the Browns. That's not the exact order, but all the teams they play other than the Patriots have winning records. And it's going to be very tough for the Jets to try and pull out a victory in any of those. So we might see the third 0-16 team in NFL history. Or is it? Yeah, it is. It would be the third because of the Lions and the Browns. So, we'll see what happens. At 31, we have the Jaguars. Jaguars are starting Mike Glennon this week, even though Minshew is healthy. They had a close loss to the Browns. I think it was more the Browns just playing down to the opponent. The Jags didn't. They couldn't come away with a victory. They're on the second longest losing streak of any team in the league right now, other than the Browns. Not the Browns. Wow. So used to it being the Browns, being the worst team in the NFL. But it's not. The Jets. The Jaguars and the Jets were 2 out of 3 teams to go winless in the month of November. The Bears being number 4. And I don't think the Jaguars are going to have any victories left in sight other than maybe the Bears in Week 16. I think that is. It's either Week 15 or 16. At 30, the Bengals. The rest of their season is going to go as it was expected to. Joe Burrow carried that team to any hope that it had, and with him out for the rest of the year, the Bengals aren't going to be worth anything. All those quarterbacks that might end up finishing out the season are going to get injured back in that box because that offensive line, they're all horrible. And they can't protect any quarterback that plays back there. The receiving weapons are there. The skill position talent is there. They just got to be able to protect their quarterback and get running lanes open. And then the defense is just atrocious as usual. At 29, the Eagles. The score doesn't tell the whole story. The Seahawks didn't play great against the Eagles other than maybe that DK Metcalf, that battle against Darius Slay was a really fun matchup to watch. Metcalf did get the better of him in that matchup, as Metcalf has been touted as one of the best receivers this year so far. Very few corners have been able to stop him. And the Eagles, anything that they had positive, it was too late. Their one touchdown Hail Mary that they had, they still would have had to get an onside kick and score again. So, it's going to get really interesting in that NFC East because I think the Eagles are going to end up losing it after holding it for more than half the season because this team is highly overrated. And they dug themselves a hole by giving Carson Wentz the 4th most guaranteed money of any quarterback in the league right now. And they're stuck with that contract. And they're not going to be able to do anything to save themselves over the next couple years. At 28, the Dallas Cowboys. They got absolutely curb stomped on Thanksgiving. That was an embarrassment of a game. I wouldn't even show up to anything after what happened in that game. They're going to have to bounce back really hard after this one to even have a shot at the division title, where the Giants and Washington look much better to take the crown away from the Cowboys and the Eagles. Cowboys have a lot of work to do going into the offseason. They're going to have to pay Dak Prescott, and that's going to screw them in terms of trying to get more talent on this team, as a lot of their best players are off their rookie contracts in terms of Dak, Zeke, Amari Cooper, Zach Martin if he stays, Tyron Smith, and then on the defensive side, DeMarcus Lawrence is overpaid for his play right now. Jalen Smith, they're going to have to pay Leighton Vander Esch soon, so they're going to run into a lot of issues coming up. At 27, the Broncos. I had to move the Broncos down just because of the loss, but good for the Broncos for putting in effort in that game. That wide receiver, I forget his first name. It started with a K, but Hinton, Hinton, Hinton. He played as it was expected to. He went 1 for 9 for 17 yards and 2 interceptions. Not much you can really do about that. They ran the ball a lot. They did a lot of wildcat direct snaps to running backs, and it didn't do anything. The Saints had an easy win. The Broncos, it's a shame that they had to play this game. It's very, very suspicious of the NFL so the Patriots, when Cam Newton got COVID the day before a game, that game still went on. They had to play backups. The Broncos lost all 4 quarterbacks they had on the roster due to COVID. Still had to play. The Ravens can have COVID case after COVID case, and they keep pushing it. Like, something's going on there. Like, Lamar Jackson gets COVID and they keep pushing the game. It's very suspicious in my opinion, but it just goes to show how Roger Goodell runs the NFL and how he can't make up his mind and just all that good stuff. At 26, the Washington football team. The Washington football team is playing very surprisingly right now. They're starting to recognize what they have that's successful and what's not. They have a stout defensive line led by Chase Young, and then that offense is slowly starting to pick itself up. Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson are beasts. Antonio Gibson had over 100 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on Thanksgiving. He totally deserves the lead role in that running back room. I think they need to stop giving snaps to McKissick and Barber. Give more to Gibson, as he's clearly the best running back in that running back room right now. At 25, the Detroit Lions. They finally fired Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. They're out of there. So they're going to have a fresh start coming out of the season. It's probably going to be rebuild time for the Lions. They're most likely going to get rid of Stafford. They might tag Galladay. A lot of defensive turnover. They're going to be a very different looking roster next year based off of who they bring in. I think Robert Salah of the 49ers, their defensive coordinator, is the most likely person they bring in here. Some other options might be college coach Eric Bieniemy, Chiefs offensive coordinator. I think we're going to start to see a lot more college coaches come into the league because they're starting to be a bit more successful. Cliff Kingsbury hasn't done horrible of a job there. I think he's done better with the Cardinals than he did in his whole career in college. And Matt Rule is putting together a nice program with the Panthers, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more college coaches coming to the NFL. At 24, the Bears. Matt Nagy wants out of Chicago very clearly. This Bears team, they're just absolutely atrocious. They're an embarrassment. Allen Robinson wants out. Their situation is just absolutely horrible. They put themselves in the worst quarterback situation of any team in the league. They go trade for a washed-up Super Bowl MVP who can't do anything, goes and gets injured. They put back the second overall quarterback they took 3 years ago, and he still plays like garbage. It's a bad situation. And then the thing that was supposed to carry this team, this defense, has been a no-show this season. They haven't been that stout defensive front that they are supposed to be. All those superstars have not been able to carry this defense, and this is just a dumpster fire of a franchise right now. At 23, the Giants. Giants are slowly starting to put together some wins on the season. Daniel Jones did get hurt, though. It sounds like he's going to be out for a little bit, which might hurt their chances at going for a playoff, well, I say a playoff spot where it's more like a division title, and that leads to a blowout against whoever the 5th seed is. But playoff berth is a playoff berth. But with Daniel Jones out, as much as people criticize on Danny Derps, as his nickname is, he is the leader of that offense, mistakes or not. And he wasn't playing too bad. Wayne Gallman is starting to play good at running back. This Giants team isn't absolutely atrocious. And if they can put together 1 or 2 more wins, they might be able to compete for that division title and take it. At 22, Carolina Panthers. They had a tough loss against the Vikings where they lost last second. This Panthers team is playing better than I expected them to this year. They're competing in games, which is what you want to see. Matt Rule is doing a good job building that team together. Jeremy Chin is a beast. That was a great draft pick. They have a whole bunch of young talent on that defense that's just going to develop and get to be really good for them. And it's going to be fun to see the Panthers compete in that division with Tom Brady and Drew Brees next year. At 21, the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert, you got to feel bad for the guy. Anthony Lynn's job is probably going to be lost soon. And it's going to suck for Justin Herbert because he's playing well this year. And he's going to have to learn a whole new system. You hate to see it. And you hope that it doesn't affect his development as it has hurt many quarterbacks' developments in the past. But there's not a whole lot of positivity to talk about on this Chargers team. They couldn't get anything going against the Bills. Anything they did do was more Bills' inconsistency or Herbert trying to carry this team on his back. A lot of these rookie quarterbacks that came from this draft, well, I say a lot, but only 2 have really started as a franchise quarterback, Herbert and Burrow. 2 has been in and out, but Burrow and Herbert have shown that they're talented. They've shown they're for real, but their front offices and their coaching staffs need to help them out, and right now they're just not doing that. At 20, the Minnesota Vikings, they pulled out a late victory against the Panthers where Kirk Cousins didn't throw the game away. They got lucky that it was a victory for them. Jeremy Chin scored 2 fumble return touchdowns in a matter of 10 seconds on back-to-back defensive plays. So we'll see how that goes for them going forward. But the Vikings are going to go towards competing in that division, or not the division, but for a wild card spot. But we'll see what they can do. They're going to be competing with the Rams, Cardinals, Bucks, 49ers, and Bears going forward for those 3 wild card spots, and we'll see if they can pull through and steal one. At 19, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are doing their thing that they do every year, where they suck at the beginning and then they get wins late in the season that mean absolutely nothing and they hurt their draft position. It is happening again with the blowout victory against the Raiders, where they didn't really prove anything other than, narratives from the past couple years. This team sucks at the start of years and then they put together wins that you wouldn't expect them to towards the end of the season. This team's going to get blown up anyway, in whatever way they can. Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, their 2 highest paid players, they can't even move because of the amount of guaranteed money they have. So it's going to be a very interesting next few years for the Falcons to see what they do with that franchise. At 18, the LA Rams. The Rams, I feel like, are the most inconsistent team this year. They lose to the Dolphins pretty badly. Then they go and beat the Bucks. Beat Tom Brady pretty badly. But then, they get beat by Nick Mullins and the 49ers. It's very inconsistent, their play. They beat teams that they're expected to beat, and they beat the Seahawks. They they beat teams that they're not expected to win, and then they lose to teams that they're expected to beat. They flip back and forth, and it's very hard to depict whether this Rams team is good or not. You have to have consistency, and I don't think it's the coach's issue. McVay has proven he's a good coach. I think it's lack of execution by the talent on the roster, and it starts with the quarterback on offense. Jared Goff has been one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks in recent memory. So they got to pick it up if they're gonna go compete in the playoffs, as they're not even guaranteed a playoff spot right now, and that's an issue for them. At 17, my New England Patriots. They needed that win against the Cardinals. They really got lucky because that offense played like straight garbage. I was frustrated because I didn't even get a chance to watch the game. In the area that I live, I didn't get the game. I ended up getting the Giants, but I watched the highlights as they came up after the game. That offense just played horribly. Cam Newton, 9 for 18, didn't even get to 100 yards and threw 2 interceptions. You cannot have that as the quarterback of an offense. You can say all you want. He's not going to complain about a victory, but you can still complain about your play during a victory. The victory wasn't because of Cam Newton. The victory was because of the play. The Cardinals missed a field goal. That game would have gone to overtime if it weren't for Zane Gonzalez's missed field goal. That punt return, that was not a blindside block. He turned away from the sideline, or he turned away from his end zone. That was not a blindside block. That should have been a touchdown. And I don't really know what to say about that. I don't think it was unnecessary roughness, but I do think it might have been head-to-head contact on Isaiah Simmons that set up the game-winning field goal. Nick Folk has been one of the most inconsistent kickers this year. He's kind of like Gostkowski this season. He can't make anything from inside like 45, but then can go hit bangers at 50. That makes absolutely no sense to me. The Patriots currently sit at 5-6. They're 10th in the AFC right now, meaning they got to move up 3 playoff spots. They hold a lot of tiebreakers though against the teams in front of them, which include Raiders, Ravens, Dolphins, Colts. They have tiebreakers over most of those teams. So as long as they continue to get wins, they do have a shot to steal a wild card's position. At 16, the Texans. The Texans are going to put together a nice second half season here, I feel like. They have a lot of winnable games coming up, and Deshaun Watson is starting to come up with that MVP caliber play that I was talking about before the season started. Too bad it didn't come through the whole season, because then he'd be in the MVP conversation, and I wouldn't look like a fool for saying he would win MVP this year. But stuff happens, and the Texans are really far behind. I don't think they steal a playoff spot. That would take a lot for them to do that. But they could possibly pull out with an above 500 record. Maybe get around to 8-8, maybe even win out, go 9-7. It would take a lot, but it is feasible for them, as they have played really well these last couple weeks. At 15, the Miami Dolphins. They beat the Jets. Second time this year. Ryan Fitzpatrick carried them to a victory. Didn't play great, but did what they needed to get done. Dolphins are sitting around in that wild card mix. They have a really tough schedule coming up, though, where they're going to have to not have many mistakes. And I think it's going to be hard for them if they're starting Tua as the quarterback and trying to pull wins together going forward. At 14, the 49ers. The 49ers are winning more games than people expected them to right now. Their roster is decimated, but they're starting to get players back. Richard Sherman, his first game back, gets an interception. How fitting. 49ers pull through with the win with Nick Mullins. 49ers are back in the wild card competition. And it's going to get interesting if Jimmy G and George Kittle come back, like week 16 or 17, and, they go sneak into the playoffs somehow, like if the Rams drop off and the 49ers sneak themselves in. They could be a force to be reckoned with in the wild card round, as they've been one of the most competitive teams this whole season with such a depleted roster. They've been on fifth-string running backs who run for almost 100 yards. It's crazy what they've been able to work with. I definitely think it puts Kyle Shanahan in the Coach of the Year conversation, but it'll most likely go to Mike Tomlin, possibly even Brian Flores, but Kyle Shanahan definitely deserves to be in the conversation as well. At 13, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, they're around this 13 spot. I think every week I move them either like up 2, down 1, up 2. They're around this spot where, they could probably beat most of the teams that are below them. Maybe not, if they were to go head-to-head with them right now, I think they might lose to like the Niners, the Rams, the Texans, the Patriots, maybe even the Dolphins. But they get sneaky wins here at some points where they beat the Packers, but then they get absolutely destroyed by Derrick Henry and that rushing offense of the Titans. I had someone who was debating with me in the comments of one of my videos that the Colts were really good. They were gonna beat the Titans this game. Look what happened. The Colts did not win this game, and they're probably not going to win most of their games going forward, as they do have a tougher schedule than expected. They play the Texans twice. I think the Texans might steal both of those games. Their only guaranteed win, it looks like, might be against the Jaguars, so we'll see what they can do going forward for the rest of the year. At 12, the Arizona Cardinals. They should not have lost that game to the Patriots. The Patriots' saving grace in that game was that they were able to shut DeAndre Hopkins down. He had 5 receptions for 55 yards. That's great play. Most of that was done by Gilmore. But the Cardinals, they couldn't beat the Patriots' defense. And a team that hasn't played great all year defensively, they haven't been able to get pressure. They haven't been able to stop the run. They were able to get pressure, and they stopped Kyler Murray. They contained him. Do I think it was in a very good way? No, I think a lot of it was luck-based. Kyler Murray was under pressure. He didn't know what to do. They blitzed a lot, and it wasn't necessarily that the blitz was effective. It just messed with Kyler Murray as a quarterback, and he couldn't escape the pocket, scramble, and then it led to not good throws by him. That one interception, though, wasn't necessarily his fault. Got tipped into the air. Was a low ball going out. But the Cardinals, they got to pick up the consistency here, because if they get a couple losses that were expected to be wins going towards the end of the season, they might find themselves falling out of the wild card spot, which they currently hold right now. At number 11, the Baltimore Ravens. At this moment, they have not played their game against the Steelers yet. We're about about 2 hours before game time starts of recording this. But I'm dropping the Ravens anyway. There's no way you can have that many COVID cases while following protocols. That's just an atrocious job. If you watch, the Saints got fined for their locker room celebration, lost a 7th-round pick. Patriots got fined for the Cam Newton and Stephon Gilmore situation where they both got COVID. They lost like a 6th-round pick. Raiders lost a pick and got fined for their situation. If the Ravens don't lose they should get maximum fined, as well as lose at least a 5th or 4th-round pick for this situation. This is an embarrassment for the whole league. That is just showing that these teams, it is very hard to not spread COVID on a team. The Broncos, they should get fined as well for what happened with the quarterbacks. They were all together without masks. I'm guessing the same thing happened with the Ravens. Someone messed up in that facility. They had to discipline a strength coach. I can't really speculate what happened, but that's just an embarrassment that you have just a massive number of COVID cases and they're still playing today. I have no idea how that happens. Even though I picked the Ravens in game picks, That was before I knew Lamar Jackson was going to be out and all this stuff that happened. I really think the Steelers are going to kick their butt in this game. At number 10, I have the Raiders. That was an embarrassment, not in game or not because of what they did off the field, but what they did on the field. Derek Carr was turnover prone, had 4 turnovers in the game. Falcons took advantage, scored over and over on that Raiders team. The defense played atrociously, but they weren't helped at all by the offense. That was just an embarrassing play against a defense that hasn't played great all year, and that might hurt the Raiders going forward as they're trying to compete for a wild card spot, and they're one of the more likely teams to be able to take it. That's not helping them at all in their situation. At number 9, the Tennessee Titans. I knew the Titans were good. I don't think they're like elite, but they can pull out blowout victories when they need to, and that's what they did. They proved, they beat the Colts. I think they are the better team in that situation. Derrick Henry, when he gets the rock, can just bulldoze defenses. Granted, the Colts were without DeForest Buckner in that game, their best run defender. You still have, as a unit, have to be able to stop the run, and they weren't able to do that. So when teams can't stop the run against the Titans, it usually leads to a victory for them, and that's exactly what happened. At number 8, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wow, this team. The score does not tell the story. So the score ended 27-24 Chiefs winning. But Mahomes had almost 400 yards in the first half, and Tyreek Hill had over 200 yards in the first half. And then they let off the gas pedal. Buccaneers almost come back, but that wasn't because the Chiefs screwing up. The Chiefs absolutely demolished the Buccaneers in play. Defense had no answer for Mahomes to Tyreek Hill. They tried to play one-on-one man coverage against the fastest receiver in the league and one of the fastest people in the U.S. Whoever that defensive coordinator is, that was not smart decision-making at all. At number 7, the Cleveland Browns. Very close victory against the Jaguars. I do think they were playing down to the opponent, but they got the win that they needed. Nick Chubb ran for over 100 yards. I don't know exactly what Kareem Hunt's numbers were, but, the Browns, that's how they win games, running the football, controlling the clock, making few mistakes. When the Browns make very few mistakes, they can get a good win. It's when they start to make mistakes that they crumble and get blown out. And as long as they can keep the mistakes at a minimum, they're going to be able to compete in the playoffs this year, and they might actually have a shot at winning a game. It's going to get very interesting what they do with Baker Mayfield in this offseason, though. They have to decide whether to pick up his 50-year option, and I don't think his play has been worth that option right now. But I don't think they're going to give him an extension. I think Baker has one more year to prove that he's worth any money for this Browns team. At number 6, the Buffalo Bills. One of the better teams in the AFC when they play at a good, consistent level. It's when they start to fall flat and make mistakes that they can really have their weaknesses shown against them. But they hide their weaknesses pretty well. Josh Allen got done when he needed to. They didn't need to utilize Stephon Diggs a whole ton this week, but they got done what they needed to. They beat a Chargers team that hasn't played well all year. It's a good win for the win column, and they're on pace to take the AFC East for the first time in over 2 decades. That's crazy, and I'm sure Bills Mafia is very excited right now. At number 5, the Green Bay Packers. All these teams going ahead have not moved at all. Packers, Aaron Rodgers is definitely still the quarterback of this franchise. Blew out the Bears on Sunday Night Football. Any thought that Jordan Love is going to take over this team next year, that's just crazy. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback on this team, and will be even, I'd say, in a decade from now. If you were to compare Jordan Love to Aaron Rodgers, it still wouldn't be close. You can't replace Aaron Rodgers. There is no one like Aaron Rodgers, and he's going to end up playing with that chip on his shoulder for the rest of his career as a Packer. Anytime he starts to slip up, they're going to start looking at Jordan Love and throw him in. So Aaron Rodgers can not make very many mistakes over the rest of his time as a Packer. At number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. They beat the Eagles. It wasn't a blowout. Partially, they didn't get a whole lot done on offense. They just fed Metcalf the ball. Didn't really do much in the running game. They didn't make a whole ton of mistakes. Russell Wilson got done when he needed to. He didn't show off. He didn't cook, but he made a nice pre-made meal of Metcalf and touchdowns. But Seahawks are the best, one of the best teams in the NFC right now. I don't think they are the best, which is why they're second right now in these power rankings in the NFC. I think it's going to get tough for them come playoff time with that defense. Though they played well against the Eagles, it's going to start to get very odd if they don't play well against more high-powered offenses, which that can really ruin their chances going for their 3rd Super Bowl in a decade. At number 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I said earlier, they're playing the Ravens today. I think the start time is at like 3:40. It's a very weird time, but nonetheless, the Steelers, they're going to have to prove that they are the best, the better between the Ravens and them. The Steelers still undefeated, and you're like, what? They're still undefeated. Why are they still in the 3 spot? Their wins have been good. They've had some close victories, but they haven't beaten a team like the Chiefs. They haven't beaten a team like the Buccaneers, the Saints, Seahawks, Packers. I think their best win is against the Ravens, Titans. Their best wins are against the Ravens, Titans, and Browns. All 3 teams have been inconsistent this year. Whereas I think the Steelers, though they might go undefeated this year, I think a lot of it is beneficial due to their schedule that they had. They benefited from a lot of easier games this year. But nonetheless, though, I don't think they're guaranteed a playoff spot yet. But I'll most likely take one barring anything crazy happening. But they're on track to go compete for a Super Bowl in about 6 weeks. At number 2, the New Orleans Saints. They're getting it done without Drew Brees, just like they did last year. Taysom Hill is now 2-0 as a starter. They didn't need to get a whole lot done against the Broncos team that didn't have a quarterback, but nonetheless, it was a good victory. They won 31-3. Got done what they needed to on both sides of the ball. Once they get Drew Brees back, they're going to have to get some consistency going so they can go take an NFC crown, because I do feel like they are the best team in the NFC. They've been the most consistent of late, and they've kind of flown under the radar due to some of these more superpowered teams this year. And at number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. That was fun to watch between the Chiefs and Buccaneers. Mahomes just aired that ball out over and over against the Buccaneers. They had no way to stop it, and they made Tom Brady and the Buccaneers look like a joke of a team. And this is why, even though the Chiefs are not undefeated, they have one loss to the Raiders, they are number 1. They have Patrick Mahomes. The changing of the guard is happening. Brady is no longer the face of the NFL. That honor belongs to Mahomes, and it will be for at least the next 10 years as long as nothing happens to Mahomes. He's a for-real talent. They did a perfect job in his development, and the start of his career has been wondrous. He already has a Super Bowl under his belt, and I believe this is his 4th career year. I think this is the 4th year in his career. He's got that massive contract. He's a partial owner of the Royals. Who wouldn't want to be Mahomes right now, as Mahomes is living the life. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe, leave a like. Hope you all have great watching of... Oh, well, by the time this goes up, the game will already be over, but hope you enjoyed watching Steelers-Ravens if you watched it. And let's get ready to root for those Patriots who are playing the Chargers this Sunday. Get you game picks tomorrow and Boston Tea Party podcast before game time on Sunday. Have a great rest of your week, and let's go Pats.